The Zorith Empire ruled the stars with iron and fear. For over 2 centuries, they had taken planet after planet, bending entire civilizations to their will. But one small blue world, Earth, had resisted them. Earth was young in the eyes of the galaxy, yet its people fought with a courage and stubbornness that puzzled the Zorith. And leading them was a man the galaxy had started to fear, Commander James Kale. James was not like other leaders. He was not born into power. He was a soldier first, a fighter who had survived 100 battles. His strategies had stopped Zorith fleets again and again, making him a living symbol of resistance. The Zorith knew that if James Kale fell, Earth would be far easier to break, so they made a plan. They would not fight him in the open. They would destroy him from the inside, and for this mission, they chose their most dangerous weapon. Her name was Lyra Vess. Lyra was a Zorith operative, trained from childhood to be a perfect infiltrator. She could speak a dozen languages, mimic human behavior, and make anyone believe her lies. Her beauty was legendary, even among her own people. But it was her mind, cold, sharp, and patient, that made her truly dangerous. The mission was clear: seduce James Kale, earn his trust, and then deliver him to the Zorith. Once he was gone, Earth would crumble. Failure was not an option. If she hesitated, she would be replaced and executed. She studied him for weeks before she even set foot on Earth. Every speech, every recorded interview, every battle report. She learned his habits, his weaknesses, the things that made him smile. The Zorith analysts told her he had a weakness for compassion. He could not ignore someone in need. That was how she would get close. When her ship entered Earth's atmosphere, she wore a disguise: human skin, human eyes, human voice. The transformation was perfect. To any human, she would seem like a beautiful stranger. No one would see the alien underneath. She landed in the city where the Earth Embassy stood, a place buzzing with diplomats, soldiers, and whispers of war. She walked through the crowded streets, blending in perfectly. In her mind, she repeated her mission like a prayer: get close to him, win his trust, destroy him. But as she reached the gardens of the embassy, the place she had chosen for their chance meeting, she felt something strange. Her heart was beating faster than it should. This wasn't fear, it was curiosity. James Kale was there, walking slowly along a stone path. He looked taller than in the recordings, his broad shoulders carrying a quiet strength. He wore no armor, no medals, only a simple dark jacket. His eyes scanned the flowers around him, but there was a sharpness in them, as if he saw everything. Lyra stepped into his path, pretending to be lost. When he looked at her, she felt a small jolt inside, something she had not expected. It wasn't attraction exactly. It was something heavier, something she didn't have a name for. "Excuse me," she said in perfect English. Her voice soft. He stopped, studied her face for a moment, and then gave a polite nod. "You seem far from home," he replied, his tone calm but watchful. For a moment, Lyra almost forgot her lines, but then her training took over, and she smiled. They spoke only briefly, just enough for her to plant the seed of recognition in his mind. When she walked away, she could feel his eyes on her back. The first step was done. Soon, she would arrange another meeting, and another, until he trusted her completely. But that night, as she sat alone in her small rented apartment, she couldn't stop thinking about him. The way he had looked at her, not as prey, not as a fool, but as if he saw through her mask. It was ridiculous. She had fooled warlords, kings, and generals. Why should one human make her feel exposed? She shook her head, telling herself it didn't matter. The mission came first, always. Yet when she closed her eyes to sleep, she didn't see the Zorith flag. She saw James Kale's face, and for the first time in her career, Lyra Vess wondered if she was ready for this mission at all. Asterisk. The gardens of the Earth Embassy were alive with color. Soft wind carried the scent of flowers, and distant city noise faded under the rustle of leaves. It was here that James Kale often came. when he needed a moment to think. But tonight, he wasn't alone. Lyra stood at the far end of the path, her hair catching the fading sunlight. She wore a simple human dress, nothing too bold, yet somehow she looked as if the garden itself had been designed for her to stand in. She pretended to study the flowers, though every sense in her body was fixed on him. James noticed her instantly, not because of her beauty, though it was undeniable, but because something about her didn't fit. She stood with the calmness of someone who had been trained. He had seen that same posture on soldiers before, and soldiers never wandered here without reason. She turned, eyes meeting his, and in that instant, Lyra felt the world narrow to just the space between them. Her mission whispered in her mind, "Smile, speak, make him trust you." But there was a strange heaviness in her chest, as if this was not an act. "Beautiful evening," she said softly, her voice carrying the faintest accent. James gave a small nod, studying her face as if trying to remember if he had seen her before. "You're not from here," he said, his tone not accusing, but certain. Lyra smiled just enough to hide the truth. "I travel a lot," she replied, letting her words hang like smoke in the air. For the next few minutes, they spoke about nothing important. The gardens, the weather, the city. It was meaningless talk, yet every word felt like a move in a hidden game. James's eyes were calm, but there was a sharpness behind them. Lyra could feel it. He was reading her, piece by piece, when a guard passed by. James stepped aside for him, and in that moment, Lyra's hand brushed against his. It was an accident, or so it seemed, but she could feel the warmth of his skin. She was supposed to use that moment to begin weaving her charm. Instead, she felt a jolt, quick and dangerous. Before she could recover, James spoke again, his voice lower now. "You have the eyes of someone carrying secrets," he said. Lyra's breath caught. For a second she almost told him, almost. But she laughed it off, tilting her head playfully. "If I told you all my secrets, there'd be nothing left to talk about." James didn't smile back, he just looked at her, and in that look, Lyra felt as if he had already guessed part of the truth. The conversation ended soon after, and James walked away without asking her name. Yet Lyra knew this was not the last time they would speak. He was curious. She could see it in the way his steps slowed before leaving the garden. Later that night, in her small apartment, she reported to her handlers. "The first contact is made," she said in her native tongue. On the other end, a cold voice replied, "Good, continue, make him yours." But Lyra didn't tell them about the strange unease she felt. She didn't tell them about the way his words had struck her, or how, for the first time in years, she wondered if she was the one being hunted, somewhere in the dark, far beyond Earth's orbit. Zorith warships moved quietly through space. The mission had begun, and there was no turning back, and yet, Lyra Vess couldn't shake the feeling that the real danger wasn't the war outside. It was the man she had just met. Days passed, and Lyra found herself seeing James more often. It started innocently enough, brief exchanges in public spaces, a smile, a handshake. Each moment felt like a delicate dance, but with every encounter, something shifted inside her. At first, it was small, a laugh shared over a bad joke, a fleeting glance that lingered a second too long. But Lyra had been trained to notice these things. She knew the signs of someone beginning to trust, and it terrified her. She had been ordered to destroy this man, not become a part of his world. One evening, James invited her to dinner, a quiet, private event away from the eyes of his colleagues. She couldn't turn him down without raising suspicion. Her mission required her to get close after all. But as she entered the small restaurant, the weight of the night settled on her chest like a stone. They sat across from each other, surrounded by soft candlelight and the hum of distant conversation. James didn't look like the powerful leader everyone talked about. Not tonight. He looked human, like a man who had worries and hopes, fears and desires, and it was strange how those qualities seemed to make him more real, more dangerous. Their conversation began with simple pleasantries, a question about Earth's cuisine, a comment about the weather. But soon, James opened up and Lyra listened. He spoke of his duties, of the constant pressure to lead a world at war. "How do you keep going?" she asked, genuinely curious. James paused, as if the question had reached deeper than he intended. "I remind myself why I do it," he said quietly. "Every choice, every battle, it's all for the people I care about, for my family, for the children growing up in a world I can't protect." Lyra's heart twisted. She had never known a leader who spoke with such raw emotion. Her mission had always been clear: seduce, deceive, destroy. But now, sitting across from him, she felt a deep conflict inside her. They ate in silence for a moment, and then James did something unexpected. He reached across the table, placing his hand on hers. For a split second, Lyra froze. Her pulse quickened, her thoughts scattered. His touch was warm, gentle. He wasn't making a move, not yet, but it was there. That connection, undeniable. For the first time, Lyra found herself asking, what if he didn't deserve to die? What if I wasn't just here to destroy him, but to protect him? She pulled her hand away, almost imperceptibly. James noticed, of course, but he didn't press. Instead, he studied her face carefully. "I don't know why, but I feel like I can trust you," he said softly. Lyra's breath caught. He had said the words she had hoped for, but the way he said them, as if they were more than just words, more than just trust, sent a cold shiver down her spine. The moment stretched out between them, heavy with unspoken words. Her heart raced as she realized just how deep into dangerous territory she had ventured. She had never expected this. She was supposed to be the one with control, the one pulling the strings. But now, for the first time, she was the one who felt vulnerable before she could respond. The moment was interrupted by the ringing of her communicator. It was a secure message from her commanders. "Mission status?" The cold voice asked. Lyra paused. Her mind raced with the words she had to say. "Keep playing the game. Keep going." But as she glanced up at James, his eyes still on her, waiting for an answer, for a brief, fleeting moment, she didn't know if she could lie to him anymore. The moon hung high over the Earth Embassy, casting long shadows across the courtyard. Lyra had come to meet James once again, this time under the pretense of discussing a diplomatic issue. But deep down, she knew this meeting wasn't just about politics. It was about something deeper, something neither of them had spoken aloud yet. As she approached, she could feel the tension in the air. James stood by the fountain, his back to her, his posture tense. When he turned to face her, his expression was serious. This wasn't the casual, friendly conversation they'd had before. Something was different. "Lyra, there's something I need to ask you," James said, his voice low. She froze, a chill running down her spine. His eyes were focused, and there was a weight to his words that she had never felt before. "I know you're not from Earth," he continued, his gaze steady. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. For a moment, she wondered if her cover was blown. But James's next words took her completely by surprise. "I've known for some time now," he said softly. "You're not like the others. You don't act like the diplomats I've met. You don't even talk like them. And your eyes." He trailed off, and Lyra felt her breath catch in her throat. Her mission flashed before her eyes: seduce, deceive, destroy. But she couldn't deny the truth now, not after what had passed between them. "James, Lyra began. But her words caught in her throat. She had been prepared for this moment, had rehearsed it in her mind 100 times. But now, faced with the reality of the situation, she couldn't speak. "I'm not angry," James interrupted, as if reading her thoughts. "I'm not going to turn you in, Lyra." His words made her heart beat faster. What was he saying? What did he mean by not angry? Instead of the rage she expected, there was a quiet sadness in his eyes. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "I know what you've been sent to do," he said quietly. "You were sent here to destroy me, to break me, and you've Done your job well. But somewhere along the way, something changed, didn't it? Lyra took a step back, trying to process the flood of emotions washing over her. The mission was slipping away. Everything she had known, everything she had been trained to do, was now fading into the background. James, I never wanted. She whispered, but the words felt hollow in her mouth. James's hand reached out, as if on instinct, and touched her arm. The warmth of his touch was unlike anything she had ever felt. He wasn't just holding her physically, he was holding her heart, her soul, and in that moment, everything inside her screamed to tell him the truth. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice trembling. It was the truth, the only truth she had ever spoken. Before she could say more, the sound of footsteps echoed from the shadows. The guards were approaching. James's expression hardened. He pulled Lyra behind him, hiding her from view. His body was tense, ready to face whatever threat had entered the scene. But it wasn't the guards, it was someone worse. A man in a dark uniform stepped into the courtyard. His face was hidden in shadow, but Lyra knew exactly who it was. It was Zorith, her commander, Lyra Vess. The Zorith officer's voice rang out coldly. You've disobeyed orders. The consequences will be severe. Lyra's heart sank. She had hoped, foolishly. It seemed that she could escape her past, but it had come for her. The Zorith had found her, and now there was no way out. James turned to face her, his eyes burning with a mixture of confusion and anger. Who is this? He demanded. His voice had the authority of a leader, but Lyra saw the cracks in his demeanor. He wasn't just angry, he was terrified. I can explain, Lyra started, but the Zorith agent raised his hand, signaling her to be quiet. You can explain all you want, but it won't matter, he said. We gave you a mission, Lyra, and you failed it. You've betrayed us. James stepped forward, standing between her and the Zorith officer. I don't know what's going on here, he said firmly, but I'm not going to let anyone hurt her, not while I'm here. Lyra watched, stunned, as James faced off against the man who had once been her superior. For a brief moment, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. James Cale, the leader of Earth's resistance, was willing to risk everything for her. But the Zorith agent wasn't backing down. I will take her back to Zorith, whether you like it or not, he said coldly. His hand rested on the weapon at his side. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating, and in that moment, Lyra realized something. Her mission had changed. She wasn't just fighting for her own survival anymore. She was fighting for him. The Zorith agent's hand hovered over the weapon at his side, his fingers barely brushing the hilt. The weight of the moment pressed down on Lyra, and every breath felt heavy, like it could be her last. James stood firm, his back straight, eyes locked on the agent. The air around them crackled with tension, the only sound the soft rustle of leaves from the wind. Lyra felt a cold sweat running down her spine. Her mission had led to this moment, but now she wasn't sure what to do. I won't let you take her, James said, his voice low but unwavering. The Zorith officer sneered, his face hidden in shadow. You have no say in this, Commander. You've had your time. She's coming with me. Lyra's heart hammered in her chest. She had been trained for this, to deceive, to manipulate, to destroy. But this wasn't part of the plan. James Cale had stepped in, and now she found herself caught between two worlds. James, don't, Lyra whispered, her voice barely a breath. This isn't your fight. But he didn't look at her. His eyes never left the Zorith agent. It's my fight now, he said, and I'm not going to let you hurt her. For a moment, Lyra didn't know whether to feel grateful or terrified. James had just put himself in harm's way for her, a woman who had been sent to destroy him. He had no reason to trust her. Yet here he was, fighting for her like she was one of his own people. The Zorith officer's eyes narrowed. You don't understand, human. She is a threat to you, to everything you've worked for. You've made a dangerous enemy. Lyra could feel her heart twist as she listened to his words. She was a threat. She always had been. She had been sent here to break James, to destroy him, and now, her emotions were getting in the way. The mission was slipping through her fingers like sand, and for the first time, she wasn't sure she cared anymore. She stepped forward, her voice shaking. "You don't have to do this, James," she said, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. "I never wanted any of this. I never wanted to hurt you." James finally looked at her, his eyes filled with something she hadn't expected. Understanding. A flicker of something else too, something she couldn't name. "I know," he said softly, his tone gentle. "But it's not just about us. Anymore, it's about Earth. And I'm not going to let anyone, even you, threaten it." Lyra's chest tightened. She had never imagined being on the receiving end of such unwavering loyalty. It was a loyalty she had never felt for anyone, let alone a stranger. But here it was, stronger than any weapon the Zorith had, and it was directed at her. The Zorith agent was growing impatient. He stepped forward, pulling the weapon from its holster, his movements swift and cold. "You'll regret this, human," he snarled. Before Lyra could react, James lunged forward, pushing her out of the way as the first blast rang out. The shot missed, but the force of it knocked them both to the ground. Lyra's heart skipped a beat as she looked up, seeing the fear in James's eyes, but also a strange determination. He was willing to die to protect her. "I told you," he said, his voice breathless. "I won't let you hurt her." Lyra stared at him, her mind spinning. He was standing in front of her, not because it was his duty, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He was risking his life for someone who had been sent to betray him. "James, you don't understand. I'm not who you think I am." Her words came out in a rush, desperate to be heard, to make him see the truth. James's gaze softened for a moment, but then the Zorith officer took another step forward, his weapon aimed directly at them. Lyra knew they didn't have much time. "I never wanted to betray you," she said, her voice cracking. "I was sent to destroy you. But now," she swallowed hard, "I'm not sure I can." She made her decision then, and it was final. She could no longer play the part of the assassin. She couldn't be the weapon they had created her to be. Not when she had seen what it meant to protect someone, to stand by their side despite the odds. "James, get back!" She shouted. In an instant, she was on her feet, her own weapon drawn, her hand steady despite the chaos swirling inside her. She faced the Zorith agent, her eyes cold, no longer the woman who had come to destroy. She was someone else now. With a swift motion, she aimed her gun at the officer's head. The sound of the shot was deafening, but when the dust cleared, the Zorith agent was lying motionless on the ground. James stared at her, wide-eyed. He didn't speak, his mouth open as if trying to process what had just happened. "I don't know if I've just betrayed my people or saved yours," Lyra said. Softly, her voice barely above a whisper, but there was no time to answer. The battle for survival had only just begun. The silence after the gunshot was suffocating. Lyra stood frozen, her hand still gripping the weapon, eyes locked on the motionless Zorith officer at her feet. James remained by her side, his chest heaving as he struggled to process the chaos unfolding around him. His gaze flicked from the dead agent to Lyra, then back again. Disbelief in something else, fear, written across his face. "You killed him," James whispered, his voice tight with shock. The weight of the words settled on Lyra like a crushing burden. For the first time since she'd set foot on Earth, she felt something she hadn't been trained to handle: guilt. "I had no choice," she replied, her voice quieter than she intended. "He was going to kill you." James didn't respond immediately, his eyes still on the body, and for a moment, Lyra wondered if she had made the right decision. The Zorith agent was dead, but now, the price of her actions loomed large. In the distance, she could already hear the sounds of approaching footsteps. Backup would arrive soon. And there was no way to explain this away. You've really done it now, haven't you? James muttered, rubbing his temple, as if trying to rid himself of the nightmare unfolding in front of him. Do you realize what you've just done? You've killed someone from your own people. For me? Lyra looked at him, her heart aching. At the words, I didn't mean for it to happen this way, she said, her voice cracking with emotion she couldn't control. The truth burned in her chest, a fire that refused to be ignored. I didn't mean for any of this. James took a step back, his hand still pressed to his forehead. Clearly struggling with his thoughts, he looked at her again, and for the first time, Lyra saw the conflict in his eyes, a mixture of anger, confusion, and something far more dangerous, betrayal. I don't know what to believe anymore. James said, his voice barely above a whisper, You're not the person I thought you were. You were sent to destroy me, to take me down, and now you've killed one of your own people. You've destroyed everything I believed about you ... about us ... The words stung, but they were the truth. Lyra knew it. She had never expected James to forgive her, but hearing the hurt in his voice made her question everything. For the first time in years, she felt like she had no purpose, no direction. She had crossed a line she couldn't undo. I'm sorry, James, she whispered, unable to meet his gaze. I never meant to hurt you. I don't know what you meant, he shot back, his tone sharp. But I know one thing, you've changed the course of this war. And now, I don't even know if we're on the same side anymore. Her heart sank at the words. She had crossed into dangerous territory, and now, even the man she had tried to protect was pulling away from her. The guilt, the doubt, they all hit her at once, overwhelming her. She had started this mission with one goal in mind, destroy James Cale, but now, she couldn't remember why. All she knew was that in saving him, she had shattered everything she had worked for. Before she could respond, a sharp voice interrupted. Them. You two seem to be having a heart-to-heart, a familiar voice called out from behind them. Lyra turned quickly, recognizing the cold tone immediately. It was another Zoroth agent, but this time, it wasn't just one person. Several figures emerged from the shadows, their weapons drawn, their eyes fixed on Lyra and James. We know what you did, Lyra, the agent said, his voice full of malice. And now you'll pay the price. James stepped in front of her. Instinctively, his body rigid with tension. You'll have to go through me first, he said, his voice low and steady. But Lyra could see the desperation in his eyes. He didn't have the resources to fight them all. Not here, not now. You won't win this, the Zoroth agent said, a wicked smile spreading across his face. You've already chosen your side, Lyra. There's no going back from this. You've betrayed your people. You've betrayed everything you once stood for. Her mind raced as the situation spiraled out of control. There was no turning back now, no time for regrets. Lyra glanced at James, and for the first time, she saw the fear in his eyes. He was in danger because of her, because of the choices she had made. Without thinking, Lyra grabbed James's hand and yanked him toward the nearby alley. We need to move now, she said urgently, adrenaline flooding her system. James didn't hesitate, his grip tightening on her hand as they ran together. Weaving through the city's dark streets, the sound of Zoroth soldiers chasing them echoed behind, but Lyra didn't look back. She couldn't afford to. They turned a corner, gasping for breath, their hearts pounding in unison. For the first time in what felt like forever, they were working together, not as enemies, but as survivors. Lyra's mind was still reeling from the events of the night, but she knew one thing. She couldn't go back to the person she had been before, and neither could James. The night air was thick with tension as Lyra and James crouched behind the rubble of a broken building. The Zoroth agents were closing in, their footsteps echoing down the empty streets like the march of fate. Lyra's chest rose and fell rapidly, her mind racing, but she couldn't afford to think too much. Not now. There was no more room for hesitation. No more room for doubt. James, Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of approaching footsteps. We don't have much time. James turned to her, his face grim, but there was something else in his eyes, a fire, a determination that hadn't been there before. He nodded, adjusting the weapon at his side. I know. But we can't keep running forever. For a moment, everything seemed to slow. The chaos around them, the ever-encroaching danger, felt distant. All Lyra could focus on was James, his strength, his resolve, and the unspoken bond between them that had grown stronger with every challenge they faced. You've come a long way, Lyra, James said, his voice firm but with a trace of something softer beneath it. I never thought you'd be standing here with me, fighting for Earth. Fighting for us. Lyra's heart pounded at his words. It was true. She had come a long way. The woman who had once been sent to destroy him was now risking everything to protect him. To protect what they had started. I never thought I'd be here either, she replied, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. But I can't let this end like this. The sound of the Zynth agents drew closer, and James gripped her hand tightly, his eyes locking with hers. Whatever happens next, but we face it together. Lyra nodded, her mind clear now, focused. There was no turning back, no more escape. The battle was upon them. From the corner of her eye, she spotted the edge of a Zynth soldier's shadow stretching down the street toward them. It was now or never. Without a word, James stepped forward, moving silently but with purpose, his movements sharp and precise. Lyra followed, her training kicking in. They had only one shot at this, and they had to take it. In the blink of an eye, James raised his weapon, firing a shot that rang out through the night air. The first Zynth agent fell, but they had been spotted. A dozen soldiers emerged from the shadows, their weapons drawn, and Lyra felt the weight of their cold stares on her. This was it, the final stand. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears as the soldiers moved in, surrounding them. Lyra didn't hesitate. She fired, taking down one agent, then another, her mind focused solely on survival. James moved beside her, covering her as she advanced, their movements synchronized in a way that only those who had fought together could understand. The Zynth soldiers were relentless, but so were they. With every shot, Lyra could feel the tide of battle turning, could feel the ground shifting beneath them. But as the last of the soldiers fell, Lyra's breath caught. Standing at the entrance of the alleyway, blocking their escape, was the man who had started all of this, her former commander. You've come a long way, Lyra, he said, his voice cold and calculating. But you failed. There is no escape now. Lyra's heart raced. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was a fight for her future, for everything she had come to care about. James stepped forward, positioning himself between Lyra and the commander. We're not done yet. The commander laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. You think you can stop us? You're nothing more than a traitor, Lyra. You've turned your back on your own kind. And for what? A human? Lyra's eyes narrowed. I didn't betray anyone, she said, her voice cold. I chose a different path, and I'm not afraid to fight for it. The commander's eyes flashed with fury. Then you'll die for it. But before he could raise his weapon, Lyra acted. In a single fluid motion, she grabbed the weapon from the fallen Zynth agent and fired, hitting him square in the chest. He staggered back, his eyes wide with disbelief, and then he crumpled to the ground. Silence fell. James stood beside her, his expression hard but full of something else, relief. Lyra's body was shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had done it. They had done it. The battle was over, but as she looked at James, her heart skipped a beat. He was still here, still standing beside her. The man she had once been sent to destroy was now her ally, Her equal. I couldn't have done this without you, Lyra said softly, her voice filled with emotion. James didn't answer right away. He just reached for her hand, his grip firm. We're in this together, Lyra. In that moment, Lyra knew they had both changed. No longer enemies, they had become something stronger, a team. And together, they could face whatever came next. They walked into the night, the dawn of a new world ahead of them, a world they would fight to protect, together.